Hey, Husker fans, welcome to another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast with Chris Peterson and Danny Gillette. As always, go Big Red.
Hello, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me, as always, is Danny Gillette. And we're back here on a Monday morning after an exciting weekend for Nebraska basketball in all senses. But the big upset yesterday, taking down number 2 Iowa, Caitlin Clark, and that was a pretty sweet win. And what a day for Jazz Shelley and Amy Williams and all those Husker girls. That was incredible yesterday. Another court storming for Nebraska.
Ice in the veins, big shot from Jazz Shelley, and you talk about can they step up to the spotlight? Can they deliver in the clutch? They've been up and down this season at times, but boy, did they deliver Sunday.
They definitely did, and we have a lot to talk about there. A lot of interesting things happened even after the game. Some interesting, Iowa being Iowa there, and then a big win for Nebraska basketball. Got off track there for a second. We'll talk about their progress in the NCAA tournament, trying to make it, and then we got some win projections released this weekend. Some odds makers putting out some projections for the Huskers. So we thought we would touch on that. Before we get into that, please make sure you guys like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. But yeah, Danny, I guess first off, man, what'd you think about the Super Bowl last night?
I thought people are complaining about the Super Bowl as the most boring Super Bowl, and people just want to see offense. I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed the defensive battle. It was interesting to see the chess match between the two defenses. It reminded me a lot of the Patriots-Rams Super Bowl from a couple of years ago. I say a couple of years ago, but it's like 5 years now. But I really like the Super Bowl. I mean, I think in that sense, the two best teams were definitely in the game. And it was very interesting to see how each defense attacked Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes. And I mean, I would have wanted San Francisco to win, and specifically Christian McCaffrey to get his first win after wasting away all those years with the Carolina Panthers. But, the Chiefs are building something special, and it hurt to see the last team to, win back-to-back Super Bowls was my Patriots, and now it's Kansas City. So, of course, the Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes discussions are going to continue for all the 15-year-old fanboys that never saw Tom Brady play. So we're going to have to endure that for a little bit. But overall, I enjoyed the game. I know it wasn't the offensive slugfest that everybody wanted, but as a football fan, I enjoyed watching the intricacies of each drive and how the defensive coordinators plan to stop the quarterbacks.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was a good game. It came down to the very end, and you can't beat Patrick Mahomes by kicking field goals. The 49ers had really two chances, in the right before regulation. They were, right down there and had to settle for a field goal. And then it was like, Tony Romo brought it up, but he's like, you might think about going for this instead of kicking the field goal. And, he turned out to be right. And Kyle Shanahan, I thought it was so fun. I thought it was so funny that, everybody was ripping Dan Campbell 2 weeks ago when he went for it on fourth down by 3 points, and Kyle Shanahan did in the Super Bowl because it's the right call. Because field goals, tying the game doesn't do you very much good. You need to score touchdowns to win the game. And, unfortunately, San Francisco wasn't able to do that. And the thing about it is, when they kicked that field goal, you knew the game was over, essentially, because you're sitting there and thinking, man, it's hard enough to stop Patrick Mahomes, but it makes it even more difficult when he knows he has 4 downs, because that's the thing that Brock Purdy, excuse me, I always get those guys mixed up. Brock Purdy didn't have that in overtime, right? Because if he gets to a 4th down, unless it's like a 4th and 2 or 3, they're probably going to punt it, So playing with that extra down, it was like when it was 3rd and 5. It's like, yeah, the Chiefs don't need a first down, and they ended up getting one. That was after the play where the guy kind of went backwards after 9 yards. But I thought the play of the game, or the call of the game, was that 4th and 1, and instead of just run the ball up the middle or something, he trusted Mahomes to read it and make a play, and I thought that was the difference. Because seriously, I felt like if they tried to run Pacheco, I thought that San Francisco was going to Michigan them, as to do the same thing that they did out of Alabama. So, Andy Reid was really smart in that a lot of coaches would have just, called the same play. And he did, I thought both guys made some mistakes. And Kyle Shanahan, I mean, this morning, he's got to be sitting there thinking back to the start of the third quarter when the 49ers got the ball at the 45-yard line and didn't hand the ball to Christian McCaffrey once. And the first two drives of the second half, both opportunities to, take a lead on the Chiefs to go up by 2 scores, and Christian McCaffrey did not touch the football a single time. And that's why Kyle Shanahan can't win these games, because, coaches lose games more than they win them. And I'm not saying that I thought he did a good job, but man, you got the best play. I mean, to me, Christian McCaffrey was the MVP of the league. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the best player, but Christian McCaffrey is the best non-quarterback in the league. You got a really great offensive line, and you don't give him the football when you were running the ball down their throat. I mean, I don't know, man. That was a mistake, in my opinion, those 2 drives. And I thought that's where they could have put a stranglehold on the game, and they didn't. And they went away from their best player when they needed to. So.
Well, Kyle Shanahan has had these long moments of reflection before. Let's see, 2019, and then the 28-3 game against my Patriots. I mean, talk about peeing your pants there. I mean, that Donta Hightower, they just run the ball, and Donta Hightower doesn't sack Matt Ryan on a pass play. The trajectory of the game goes completely different. So, I mean, Kyle Shanahan is just one of those coaches who can't win in the clutch, and he's just good enough to get them to where they need to be, his teams to where they need to be. But when the big pressure moments happen, he just seems to absolutely, fold under the spotlight. So, I mean, I think it's just another, Kyle Shanahan can't win big games. And before I forget, shout out to the kickers, man. The 2 of the longest field goals in Super Bowl history were kicked in yesterday's game. So, I mean, hey, kickers are people too, and they certainly stepped up in a big way as well.
They did. The one you did have the blocked PAT, which was a miss-hit kick, I think, by my guy Jake Moody, which I feel bad about. And that was a big play, because if that doesn't happen, the Chiefs need a touchdown on that last drive instead of a field goal. So I mean, maybe that does sway. Everything matters. And but yeah, it was interesting. And I go back to that Super Bowl they lost against the Patriots when they literally were in. They completed a pass, I believe, it was Julio Jones, and they were down
with
like
a nice
30
toe tap catch on the sideline. Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's it. I thought that is it. And then I remember they had I can't remember the guy's name, Matt whatever, but he was like the most accurate kicker in the league that year. He had Matt Bryant. He hadn't missed a field goal literally all year. They were indoors, and instead of just running the football 3 times, kicking the field goal and walking out of their Super Bowl champions, he runs some dumb pass play. And it's just these offensive coaches. Sometimes these offensive gurus, they get away from running the football and what works. It takes me back to, when the 2008 NFC Championship game with the Vikings, they got down to the 35-yard line. They have Brian Longwell. You have Adrian Peterson, one of the greatest running backs of all time. Just give him the ball 1 or 2 times. Don't even throw it with Brett Favre, and don't give him the chance to throw it across his body and throw an interception, and they don't do it. So it's like these sometimes.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, sometimes these coaches, they want to be the genius instead of just doing what works and giving the football, to your best player, to an Adrian Martinez Adrian Peterson. Excuse me, God, I'm really butchering names today.
No, Adrian Martinez. Adrian Martinez would have fumbled.
Adrian Martinez would have. I love him, but he would have fumbled. But McCaffrey or Peterson. But anyways, what were you going to say? Or
Marshawn Lynch at the 1-yard line when they had beast mode at the 1-yard line, and Pete Carroll elected to pass. Malcolm Butler picks out the interception, and that talk about 2 great Super Bowls. The Atlanta Falcons one and the Seattle Seahawks one were 2 great ones that I remember as a Patriots fan. And then, of course, you had the Tyler Lockett catch prior to the play on the goal line where they didn't run the ball to Lynch. And I was thinking, oh, here we go again. It's David Tyree, Mario Manningham all over again. And they just didn't run the ball. And Marshawn Lynch is still bitter about it to this day, understandably. You're on the 1-yard line with Marshawn Lynch, you run the ball. But Malcolm Butler came in and saved the day, and I got to go to the parade. So,
and then even you could say with Pete Carroll too. I mean, they gave the ball to Lendale White, in that Texas when they lost the Tech. But it's like, man, you had Reggie Bush sitting on the sidelines, man. It's like, I don't know. It's just great. It's baffling sometimes how coaches will take the ball out of their best players' hands when the game is on the line. And give credit for Andy Reid for not doing that.
Yeah.
He's like, man, it's the Super Bowl's on the. He basically was like, okay, Patrick Mahomes, you're running here, and Travis Kelce's blocking for you. I'm going to put the game in the hands of my two best players. And for something else, man, like everybody freaking out about him yelling at Andy Reid.
Yeah,
like, I get so sick of the policing that goes on. These are grown men, and that personal foul flag with when he hit slap the guy at the face or whatever, and they were pushing each other back. Why is that a flag? Why is that a flag? These are grown men. They're pushing each other. This isn't middle school, high school football. Unsportsmanlike penalties should not exist in the NFL. Taunting should not be a penalty. These guys are paid.
Man up if you're that offended by the taunting.
Exactly. And if you don't want the guy, you know what? I like when people push each other. You know what? Like, let's embrace the pro wrestling in it a little bit and stop we're not children. This doesn't need to be high school sports where everybody has to be a good sport. Okay, these guys are grown men competing for a championship, and I absolutely hated that they threw that flag, because it's like, come on, man. Let them go at it. But anyways,
Travis Kelce, people were like, oh, people should bench Travis Kelce. They bench Kadarius Toney for saying something about the Chiefs. Well, yeah, you're not going to bench your best, probably one of your best players on the field in a heated moment, and you're not like. If you hate that Travis Kelce kind of pushed Andy Reid a little bit on the sideline, then you would definitely hate a practice, because you just saw what went on TV. And these fights and pushes happen every day. And Reid and Kelce definitely have made up by now. And it's the heat of the moment. Your adrenaline's running so high on the biggest game of your career. I mean, I just hated it because athletes aren't. I hate the standard that athletes are set that they're supposed to be role models. No, they're not. Yeah. They're there to play a game, and they're there to, compete. And, sometimes that brings out some not so good emotions. So everybody who's on their high horse about Kelce, pushing Reid, Reid didn't seem bothered by it. They were just in the heat of the moment trying to figure out what works best. And, that's just, it's so stupid. I don't know. And the same people that complain about that are the same people, that complain that football is not tough anymore. So go figure.
Yeah, exactly. I agree 100%. All right, well, let's get to Nebraska. It was my biggest win on Sunday was watching Caitlin Clark go down, and that was awesome. I mean, it was just the way that it happened. I mean, down 14 points, I'm sitting there thinking, man, in that fourth quarter started, I'm like, man, she's going to break the record. Not only is she going to beat us, but she's going to break the record on our home floor. And then we hold her to a goose egg. And just Jazz Shelley, man, and not just Jazz. There was a bunch of, Alexis Markowski played spectacular. I mean, just a bunch of them. The Logan Nisley, the freshman, came up big, was hitting 3-pointers, and Natalie Potts was huge. Just all of them in the defensively, but man, that shot from Jazz Shelley, she officially made herself a Husker legend with that one.
Absolutely, and you look at some of the other. Producers for Iowa, Kate Martin, she had 20 points, and, yet they still were able to take down Iowa. I mean, you look at, some of the statistics here, and, it was just crazy how, the Huskers were able to battle back throughout the course of the game. I think it's a testament to, buying in and, what this team can do. And, they kind of started off a little bit slow in, the first in the first frame. They shot 37%, and including 1 for 6 from beyond the arc. But all the same, they were able to stay in the game, and they were able to compete. And they actually, one of the biggest things to me was their shooting. And in the final frame, they were 80% from the line, which obviously played a big role as they were able to narrowly win the game here. And, I think there's been a lot of criticism in regards to the way that Amy Williams has done things at times this season. But, I think this team showed a lot of grit and a lot of guts on a day when it was absolutely needed.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, give credit to her. And there was some moments where I didn't think they were going to come back. And I'm just amazed at how they finished that down the stretch and were able to keep, Caitlin Clark from, tying it up. And I mean, she got some decent looks, but, I just thought that they, had a great plan. And I was a legit team, but, Nebraska really, I think the thing that I took away from this game is, Jazz Shelley's leaving after this season, and that's going to be, a tough loss. But like I said, man, Logan Nisley was, absolutely off the charts yesterday. He talked about her and Natalie Potts are both freshmen. Alexis Markowski is only a junior. And then we're bringing in Britt Prince next year, who, I think that she's going to step into the starting lineup and be a superstar. So, I mean, the trajectory for Nebraska women's basketball is, on an up arrow that it's never been on. I don't think in its history, the trajectory that it's on right now. So I'm hoping that we look back on this in a few years, like that this was the start of something really, really great. And I mean, not even looking ahead to, next season, but looking ahead to this season, because, this is definitely, I think, going to, as long as this team doesn't completely fall on its face, they're going to be in the NCAA tournament now. And we'll see where they like a 9-10 seed before, and we'll see where this gets them. They're playing Ohio State, on Wednesday, which is one of the few teams that's beaten Iowa on the road. So that's not going to be easy. But in terms of, getting that signature win, Amy Williams' crew accomplished that. I think that they have ensured themselves of an NCAA tournament berth.
23 points from the bench on Sunday as well. So there was also that secondary scoring, and that's exactly what you need if you want to go far. You want a balanced and complete team. That's one of the things that the Husker men have been able to do well, and the women have been able to, kind of find that complementary style all the same. And, that bench production is going to be really needed as they go down the stretch here. And, I think it's a testament to, how deep this roster can be when everybody's firing on all cylinders.
And it just was another great example of, how well Nebraska supports, women in sports.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear about that all the time with Caitlin Clark, but it's like, man, if the entire country just supported women's sports like Nebraska does, we wouldn't even have these conversations, because every women's sporting event would be sold out. It's not like it was just sold out because of Caitlin Clark. I mean, that was a big part of it, but it was fun to see. And I think that people, if you're not watching women's college basketball, you're really missing out, because it really is an exciting game. And the reason why, I mean, some of the rules are kind of messed up for women. Like Caitlin Clark can't even if she wanted to declare for the WNBA draft, she wouldn't have been eligible until after the season anyway. So that's why, women's college basketball is, such a high level game, because, the players have to stay there, as opposed to college, where all the best players go one and done and everybody's transferring everywhere. So it is kind of fun. And if you're not a fan of it, I would encourage you to pick it up. So at any rate, it was also a big weekend for Nebraska basketball. I mean, after the bad loss to Northwestern, they needed a win Saturday night against Michigan, and they left no doubt. They went on a 29-3 run in the first half, ended up winning the game by 20. They improved their NET ranking by 5 spots. And the new bracketology projection, although Lenardi didn't put it out, he kind of teased it out there. And that before the Michigan game, Nebraska was one of the teams with the last 4 byes, and they moved off that territory. So they did improve their position, but still a lot of work to do for this team.
Absolutely, but I think Saturday's win was a big one. First win against Michigan since March of 2018. And, I think when you look at this game, it was a well-rounded effort from everybody. I mean, Rink Mass had 11. Bryce Williams had 16, and he's been playing at a high level lately. Then you had Tominaga, I believe, with 13. And, you had a lot of people contributing in terms of sharing the basketball and moving the basketball. And, I think they did a little bit better on the boards. Nebraska still did have 12 turnovers, so that's not something that's necessarily encouraging. I think turnovers are just going to be a problem with this team, and, that's the way it's going to be. But at the same time, they were able to make the most of their opportunities. So that's something that, that's encouraging as we move down the stretch here.
I think that Michigan had 12 turnovers. Nebraska only had 9, but still,
yeah.
But yeah, I think if this team can keep that number, I think that is the defining stat for this team, kind of like the football team. If they can keep their turnovers under 10, they're gonna have a chance to win the game. And I don't care if that's that's against Indiana. That's what they did against Illinois on the road. They turned it over less than 10 times. Even though their offensive rebounding was atrocious, they had a chance to win the game. So it seems to me there's 3 categories for Nebraska that really define whether they win or lose. It's if they make threes, if they turn the ball over, and opponent offensive rebounds. And so you look at this game, at the 3-point line, they outscored Michigan. They made 9, Michigan made 8. So they had a +3 advantage there. They had 9 turnovers, Michigan had 12. Michigan had 17 offensive rebounds to 12 for Nebraska, but they did have a 39-36 edge overall in the board. So they didn't get killed. They didn't have like a -15 margin like they did. Yeah, like Illinois, or even when Illinois, they gave up a ton of offensive rebounds. So, I got to give credit to Fred because I didn't like the big lineup against Northwestern. I did think that it suited, better against Michigan, and I have to give credit to Keisei Tominaga. No turnovers, he had 2 assists. He was active with the basketball, and Josiah League 2 is another one. I mean, he played one of his worst games against Northwestern. I'm not trying to down him. He just didn't have any. I don't think he registered like 1 rebound in that game, and that's just not his kind of play. He's usually a very productive player, and for him to come out and score 16 points, grab 8 boards on 7 of, he really set the tone. And you look at the bench; they barely got anything from the bench in that game. Lawrence didn't shoot very well. It was one of the weird games where CJ didn't make a whole lot of shots. So I think. They did get 15 points off the bench, but there wasn't a lot of great shooting. But overall, they did exactly what they needed to do, and now they get a week off until Saturday against Penn State. Another must-win game at home. But this league is very tough, and that Northwestern game, I do attribute part of that loss to just a gauntlet stretch that they had to go through. That was their
Absolutely.
third game in 6 days, and
2 of them in overtime.
Yeah, and that was their 3rd road game in 4 games too. So it's a lot of travel. And so now you're sitting here looking at the schedule. A lot of people have said that Nebraska needs to go 4-2 to win or to make the tournament. I feel like if they go 3-3 and win a Big Ten tournament game, I just have a hard time seeing them get left out with 20. That would be like 21 wins. But if you figure you beat Penn State, Minnesota, and Rutgers at home, and then you've got road games against Indiana, Ohio State, and Michigan. So the idea is you sweep the home games and get one of those road games, and you're in. So I do buy that, but yeah, what do you think? Do you think they have to get 4? Think they have to go 4-2 here to make the tournament?
Yeah, I think so, because I think part of what the selection committee, should Nebraska, make the NCAA tournament, is going to look at is, the road wins, because winning on the road has been a huge issue for this team. And quite honestly, it's been a difficulty for the conference, but for Nebraska especially. And I do think they need to have a solid stretch. And the schedule, I'm not going to say is not tough, because every Big Ten game is tough, but it's a little bit more favorable than, let's just say, the gauntlet that Nebraska played last week. And so I think they have a shot at really, making the most out of this stretch, but it's not going to be a cakewalk by any means.
Man, the Sunday March 10th game against Michigan, the last game of the season, this is a weird. So Nebraska has a bye week essentially this week, and then they have a bye. They play Rutgers March 3rd, and then they play Michigan March 10th on the road. And that's a 9 That's a 10 a.m. Central Time start for that.
Why?
Game.
Do you know why? Or
I don't know why. I have no idea why it's so early, but
that also seems like kind of late in the season. Like, I figured the Big Ten tournament's probably like that week, right?
It must be the next weekend, the 17th. So they must be starting the NCAA tournament like almost a week later.
That's a little late, I think. Well, late in terms of late in the season.
That does seem late. Maybe that's wrong, but that does seem like a weird time.
I know it definitely is 10 a.m. They better.
I don't like those early morning games. It seems like you're just like, especially against a team like Michigan on upset alert, like that kind of worries me. That's because they'll have Doug McDaniel back too. But
that's true.
As long as Nebraska just wins, one. I agree with you. I think if they go 3-3 but don't win any on the road, then they're probably going to have to win that first game in the Big Ten tournament,
which I think is probably doable with this team, I would say.
Yeah, because I think they're going to be, they're still going to be one of the top 6 or 7 seeds, I would think. So
it's interesting because you're talking about it on Wednesday and off the air, and we were talking about the lineup change, and you said you didn't really care for it, and I said that Lawrence didn't have a lot of production, so I was cool with sliding Gary into the starting spot. And Wednesday the results didn't really show, but now I see why the lineup change was made. Honestly, I think Lawrence kind of functions a little bit better off the bench, and I think Gary definitely brings the spark in the lineup. So, I mean, we'll see how if this lineup change is a permanent thing, but on Saturday it looked really good, at least. And let's face it, nothing looked good on Wednesday, so there is that too.
no, it didn't. And right now to look at the Big Ten standings, we've got Purdue at 11-2, and then Illinois at 8-4, Northwestern's at 8-5, Wisconsin's at 8-5, Michigan State 7-6, and then Nebraska's at 7-7. Minnesota, Iowa, Indiana are all there.
Wisconsin just lost again too.
Yeah, Penn State. Rutgers is actually coming on, so that actually might not be a terrible win. And so is Indiana, Penn State too, actually. So there's a lot of teams. It's crazy. Everybody but Michigan is terrible at the bottom. It's so bad. It's so bad. It got bad to the point where Nebraska fans were cheering for Will Cheddar. I mean, that's embarrassing when the opposing team feels so bad for you.
Michigan didn't really impress me in any phase of the game whatsoever on Saturday.
They're bad. I think Juwan Howard's getting fired, as sad as that makes.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because he was a Michigan legend.
He is, yeah. He just didn't. I do think he's a good coach. Like I mean, because like you think about the even before this game, in 10 of the 12 like Big Ten games, they've finished with the lead at the end of the first half. So I mean, I do think that shows that he's coming out with like a good plan, but the roster building, their NIL didn't work out. And then he didn't recruit 2 years in a row, his number one transfer didn't get admitted to the school. So it's like, I mean, I get why that's frustrating, but you also have to know what you're getting into. And so you can't recruit players who can't make it to your team. So, I mean,
and you also have to adapt and try not that he's not trying to find some way to win, obviously, because no coach wants to lose, but you would think after the first transfer didn't make it into the program that he would kind of have a plan for if the second transfer also didn't make it into the program.
Yeah, because like they were going to get Caleb Love, and then his academics didn't work out, and same happened with Terrence Shannon. And so if he had Terrence Shannon, I mean, they'd probably be a better team. So, but we'll see. I'm not 100% sure he's going to get fired, though. I think he might get the same treatment as Jim Harbaugh and get one more year. He did miss part of this year with he had to have heart surgery, so it's been a crazy year. But I'm not sure Michigan's going to pull the plug, but it sure looks like they need to. But at the same time, people were saying the same thing about Fred Hoiberg after they won like 9 games 2 years ago, and look at where they are now. So sometimes the best moves are the ones that you don't make. Because you
don't want to pay another buyout.
Well, that's true. That's true. That's true. But yeah, I mean, Trev's got to be, and it's just so awesome to see, all the football players and Matt Rule at all these games, and Trev's got to feel really good. I mean, we'll see what happens with Will Bolt, and the baseball team, but he might get through a whole year without having to like fire a big name head coach for a poor performance. So that he would have to probably feel pretty good about that.
I have to say, the way that Fred's been able to increase the win total every year with basically not last year, because this year and last year I would say had similar rosters, but I was going to say a new roster every year. I mean, that's pretty impressive to me. And you talk about a coach who loves to use a transfer portal. Fred loves to use it, and it's worked out, so far these last couple of years because he's found players that have fit his style better.
And then you look at I'm pretty sure that like Bryce Williams, I believe, has another year. I know Rank Mass does if they come back for another season. And then we talked about Janik. I'm going to mess up his name. Jankowski. I was going to call him Janikowski, but I know that's the old Raiders kicker. But I mean, I feel like he's going to come in and have a chance to be that next Keisei Tominaga type, like NBA level player. Not saying right away.
He has a better chance to be an NBA type player than Casey does.
I do too, yeah, because I think you look at where he's at right now, and then you give him 2 or 3 years under Fred Hoiberg, and I think Fred is definitely showing that, like I said, not a lot of guys are getting to the NBA yet, but I mean, Bryce McGowan's did, but I mean, even just all these guys like, Rink, Casey, they're all improving their professional stock, whether that means playing in Europe or whatever. But like Rink Mast is going to play professional basketball somewhere. And so is Keisei Tominaga. If Keisei doesn't make it in the NBA, he'll make a ton of money playing in Japan. He'll be an absolute superstar, So like all these guys have very bright futures, just maybe not in the NBA, which is, tough to get into. But
Yeah.
I think Fred is definitely, setting himself up to be able to sell that to other players too in the future.
Absolutely. And recruiting's never been his issue. It's been the results on the court.
Yeah. But hopefully this year it'll work out. We've got a week off until Penn State on Saturday, so a little bit of a break here
desperately. So I'm happy to have a week off.
They do need some rest. So that will get us to our last topic here. Nebraska football win projection. We always want to talk a little bit of football. We know you guys, that's the number one topic for Husker fans. Not a lot going on this weekend. We're in a recruiting dead period, and it seems like the coaches maybe actually took some time off. I think they're focused. I don't think they took time off. I think they're focused on winter conditioning drills and whatever. But at any rate, not a ton happening, but FanDuel did release its updated win projections for the 2024 season. So we thought we'd talk about that really quick. Nebraska is moving up there in the Big Ten. Oregon and Ohio State are in the top spot with 10.5. And then you got Michigan and Michigan and Penn State at 9.5. I think Iowa is like 8.5, maybe ahead of us, but Nebraska's sitting there projected at 7.5 wins. So what I know it's a prognostication. I know some fans are sick of it. They don't want to hear about the offseason talk, but that's what we're here for. So what do you think about that, Danny? What do you think about the 7.5 win projection for the Huskers?
And quite frankly, that's all we've got until we start playing the games and until this team is good again. But I agree with it. I agree with it. Raiola is going to be a dynamite quarterback, and he's going to be a first round draft pick. But there's always bumps in the road when you start a freshman quarterback, obviously. And I don't think it's going to be a case of trying to get the most out of Raiola. I think he'll be ready. I think it's just going to be about learning the system and adapting to college ball. So I agree with it. I'd be happy with 7. Especially kind of given, the 5 wins last year with kind of a hodgepodge in the quarterback room. I'd love to see 8-4 or 9-3, but I agree with 7. This isn't an easy schedule by any means. I'm definitely looking at the first 6 games of the season as, all home games. There are some winnable games in there, and so I agree with it. I'm hoping it's more, like a 9-3, 8-4, but we'll see. But I'd definitely take 7.
So I was wrong. Iowa's projected for 7-5. So Nebraska's tied for 5th in win projection. Is USC, Washington, Nebraska, Iowa, Maryland are all 6.5 or 7.5. Wisconsin's 6.5. Then you got Northwestern, Michigan State, UCLA, Illinois, Indiana at 5.5. And then you have Minnesota at 4.5. And then somebody else, they're not important though. It's pretty interesting how that all kind of works out. The win projections, because it is really tough. You look at Washington, what are they going to be like? I do think Jed Fish is a pretty good coach, and they do have Will Rogers, so there might not be as much.
Belichick calling the defense now.
Steve Belichick, yeah. I wonder how much Washington film old Bill's going to be watching this year.
He was the defense was the only bright spot of the Patriots last year, so that's actually a pretty good pickup by Washington.
Yeah, if I wonder if Bill doesn't get a job, if he'll be like a Washington film analyst for like $200K. Dude, that would be Bill. Yeah. He would love that. Just sit back there and watch film and tell people what to do.
Doesn't
never have to talk
any
to
coaching whatsoever. You can just watch film all day.
Yeah.
He would love that.
Yeah, dude. Well, I'm like,
for $200K.
People were talking about Steve Belichick to the Packers. I'm like, sign him up. I'm like, bring Bill in to be the off-field analyst.
He's better than Jeff Hafley. I'll say that much.
Yeah, we'll see. I like. Jeff
I love
Hafley,
your optimism surrounding Jeff Hafley. I really do, and I give you credit because I have zilch. I have 0. Not an optimism for Jeff Hafley.
See, I like Jeff. I always 2 years ago when Harbaugh was talking about leaving for the Vikings. I actually thought Jeff Hafley would be a good candidate. So
I mean, the BC defenses under Hafley were terrible, so I'm hoping you get like 2020 Hafley, 2019 Hafley, and not the Hafley of the last 3 years.
I think part of it, though, I mean, because Jesse Minter, when he coached at Vanderbilt, the defenses were terrible too. Because you just didn't have the players, and so we'll see what happens. But I think that he's got some players in Green Bay, but I don't know. Well, hopefully, Matt LaFleur hasn't done a good job with his first 2 defensive coordinator hires, so we'll see. I guess so. I do feel pretty good about the 7.5 wins. Yeah. I feel like gut feeling, I feel like this is an 8-4 team, and I feel like they have a chance to be better than that. I feel like 7-5 is like the floor, and I feel like the ceiling is 10-2. I feel like it's, if everything goes right. I'm not saying I'm predicting that, anybody, but I'm saying if everything goes, putting the disclaimer out there. I'm not. I am drinking the Kool-Aid, but I'm just saying if everything goes right, because the schedule's not that tough. Ohio State is damn good.
No.
I'm trying to think, we got USC,
UCLA.
UCLA. I mean, who are they going to have as head coach? Hopefully not
Tony White. No, just kidding, everybody. Just kidding.
Yeah, just kidding. Yeah, calm down. I am getting a little worried about it, but because they're getting Tommy Reese's name is getting thrown out there as a possible candidate.
Tony White's not going to leave this year, but he will leave within the next 2 to 3 years. He's too good to not have at least a shot. Same thing with Terrence Knighton. So I think within the next 2 to 3 years, both may be gone, but I wouldn't worry about it for this year. And quite honestly, I'd rather coaches be gone with promotions and continue to develop and become an attractive destination for coaches than to have to pay out their salaries or buy out their salaries. So I'm okay with that.
And, you look at Nebraska got 70% of their production returning. They added, former top 10 running back recruit in Dante Dowdell. They added Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayor, who are both
I'm excited for those two.
Yeah, very impressive so far. They're bringing in Carter Nelson and Grant Bricks too, and those are three recruits that I think are going to make an impact. I'm not saying that Grant Bricks is going to start day one, but if we get to game 6 and Nebraska needs somebody that can start at guard, like I think Grant Bricks could do it. And so I just feel like there's a lot of, even positions where, maybe there's a question mark. I feel like there's some young talent there that can kind of step up. And then you also have Malachi Coleman and Jalen Lloyd, Thomas Fedoni, a good chunk of the offensive line returning. And then you got a 5-star quarterback and a schedule that's not that difficult. At Ohio State is the most difficult game. At USC is going to be very, very tough, obviously, but you get Wisconsin at home. You do have to play at Iowa, of course, which is never easy, but you get UCLA at home. Really outside of, you look at the other road games. I know that USC and Ohio State are tough, but you play at Purdue, your other road game's at Indiana, and then your other road game is at Iowa. So, I think out of those 5 road games, those are all very winnable games. Outside of the 2, I wouldn't call those winnable. I'm not saying Nebraska can't compete in those games. I do think they can. But the other home games, they're really, UTEP, Colorado, Northern Iowa, Illinois.
Colorado at home is going to be cool.
That'll be a fun game. They got to get that one. So, there's some challenging games at home, but I do think that like I said, the floor is 7-5, and I think the ceiling is 10-2. And so, and if Nebraska does go 10-2 against that schedule, they're absolutely going to be in the playoff mix, because that's any
build
team.
Matt Rule a statue if that happens.
Yeah, build him a statue. You're right, but I just think any team that's 10-2, if it's, I think Michigan with their schedule, if they get to 9 wins, I think they're going to have a chance. I think if Penn State gets to 10 wins, they're probably going to make the playoff, because it's just, I just don't know if the selection committee is going to give, the Big 12 2 bids, or the ACC, maybe if like Clemson, or, maybe if it's Miami and Florida State, but, I think that there's a clear dividing line in the conferences. And so one of those teams is going to have to be very good to, kind of leap. And that's the other thing too, is it's like, are you going to have 2 11-1 teams out of the ACC? Like, probably not. And that's what I think it's going to take to get in. Like, if there's a team in the ACC with 2 losses and there's a team in the Big 10 with 2 losses, like, who you think's going? I think the Big 10 team. And I think, it could be wrong, but in specific instances, we'll have to look at, who they beat and whatever. But I think this year with Florida State, it did show that the committee does not respect the ACC at all.
It'll be interesting to see if anybody from UCLA's 3-man 2024 recruiting class will be on the field by the time we play them. But good old Chip.
The good old 3-man recruiting class. You know what? I would, if I was UCLA, I don't know why they haven't. I would call Matt Campbell in a heartbeat because I feel like this would be a great job for him. Like he's done well at Iowa State, a place where you're never gonna recruit 5-star players. And at UCLA, you're never gonna recruit better than USC. I don't care if Pete Carroll is the head coach. You're just never gonna out-recruit USC on the football field.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like you're just not going to. So you need somebody who can, develop that talent and build and foster a culture. And Matt Campbell will do that. I know that some of the luster has kind of fallen off of him, but anybody that can win that consistently at Iowa State, I feel like he could win at UCLA. I'm not saying he's going to like win a national championship, but if you want a coach that's going to, crank out like 7-8 win seasons in that program, Matt Campbell would be my choice. I would choose him over PJ Fleck in a heartbeat.
And I feel like Tony White, if he were to leave, would want to leave for an attractive job. UCLA right now is not an attractive job at all. There's a lot of work to be done there, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about him leaving for UCLA. Leaving in general, yeah, but not this year.
Did he play for UCLA though?
Tony White?
Yeah, where did he play football?
I'm looking that up. I'm gonna look that up. See what.
Because I think he's got some ties to UCLA. Maybe he just coached.
I know he has some San Diego State ties.
Okay, never mind. So yeah, he played. Let's see. Yeah, he did play for UCLA.
That's okay.
Yeah, so he played for UCLA and then was signed as an undrafted rookie by the Bills, played in the CFL, then went back to UCLA as a graduate assistant. So yeah, I mean that would be if it's your alma mater, I feel like if they offer him the job, he's probably going to take it, but I don't think we're going to get to that point. I don't think UCLA is going to offer somebody without any head coaching experience, but I'm just saying, like when I saw the name Tommy Rees getting thrown out there for the job, I'm like, I definitely would hire Tony White over him if it was me.
Can't be any worse than Chip Kelly either way. I mean, damn, he really left the program in shambles. But no, yeah, I'll be interested to see where White goes when his time comes and where Knighton goes when his time comes, because I'm definitely worried about losing Knighton. There's no way he's going to be around as a defensive line coach much longer, I think, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing whatsoever.
No, it's just part of the
He's really, really good.
Yeah, he is really, really good, and I'm sure that he's going to want to get back to the NFL at some point. And yeah, or unless he becomes, unless you make him like co-defensive coordinator, or maybe if Tony White leaves in the next year. That's the thing. You have him and Dvorak, so you got some tough, but that's just part of it. If you win, you're going to lose coaches. It's like, the Michigan coaching stuff going on right now, and Michigan fans are like freaking out about all these coaches leaving. It's like, that's going to happen if you have coaches. And then part of it too is like they had 2 coaches on their staff that wanted to be the defensive coordinator, and then they hired somebody else. And it's like, okay, if you get passed over for a job, you're not going to, if you have a chance to go somewhere else and coach in the NFL for Jim Harbaugh and not have to recruit, you're probably going to take that opportunity. So like, yeah, I just, it's just people freak out, I think, too much about things, I guess is my main
point. Jeff Hafley didn't want to do any work. Didn't want to do any work at BC either. So there you go.
Mike Loxley was talking about joining the studio because he said he had a 3rd string running back that asked him for $100,000, for NIL. So it's getting crazy, and the NCAA needs to step in because it's.
Well, they've never been like, and I ranted about this on Saturday, and I'm always good for an NCAA rant, but they never step in. They step in when it's too late, and they act surprised when things go awry. Like, come on now.
I guess I should say that they just need to get rid of the NCAA for football.
Yes,
is more what I mean. Because it's just, this isn't. It's not fun. It's not a fun time to be a college football. Think about it in the NFL. Like right now, if you're like, hey, I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I just won the Super Bowl, and now I have to worry about all 31 teams getting Pat Mahomes, because that would be in college football, it's totally legal. The
honestly,
Patriots,
that would probably make the NFL more exciting. Just to have random team get a bidding war for Pat Mahomes, that would balance the NFL more now, honestly.
that would. But just imagine that. Yeah, you got like the Patriots calling, we'll give you $200 million to be our quarterback this week.
That'd be nice. I'd love Pat Mahomes. That would actually be awesome.
Danny's all in on that.
I'm all in. Let's go.
But I feel like
it's your point for sure.
but it's not sustainable to like literally have, free agency all the time and, no salary cap type thing. And so I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to eventually go to some type of, the thing is, people throw out that salary cap term, which is fine. That's fine. But you know how you get a salary cap, right? You have to collectively bargain it. So you have to treat those players as employees, which I do think is coming. And I do think that should be how it works, but I don't know. It's so interesting because I don't think we're going to get the stability that we want until players are given their full rights. And that's not something that the powers that be are going to want to do. So that's going to be the interesting dynamic, I think, over the next
Well, I think we're going
to
see, like you just alluded to a little bit earlier, a power separation. I think it's just going to be, football kind of governs itself and the commissioners of the conferences kind of govern and not the NCAA. The NCAA does their best work when they're just completely oblivious and they don't know what they're doing. And, it's no longer about, getting academics and collegiate athletics at the same time. It's a business now. And the sooner the NCAA admits that is better.
Yep, it'll be better for everybody, at least to get them out of major college football. They can administer some of the other sports, but they definitely need to get out of major college football. So that seems like a good place to wrap it up here this week, you guys. We're going to come back with another episode on Wednesday, and I think we're going to start getting into our position previews, our depth chart predictions.
Football's coming.
It's almost spring, so we're going to start. We'll break it down. We'll start with quarterback on Wednesday. I wonder what we'll be talking about. Who we'll be talking about then?
Definitely Luke McCaffrey and Noah Vidral on Wednesday.
Man, it's been an upgrade. You mentioning all those names just like shows how much Nebraska's upgraded this quarterback room. So
yeah, seriously. Now that I think about it, yeah, wow.
So that'll be fun to talk about. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about Dylan Raiola's potential first year at Nebraska. So check out our episode on Wednesday. And if you haven't already, you guys, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Check out HuskerBigRed.com as well. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.